to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody check and make sure your microphones are on. I think they are.
That's on. See this ring is put up, it's on.
Here you go. All right, so it's June 28th, 2018. We're here for a building committee meeting. We have an agenda. The first item is approval of minutes from the last meeting. Everybody have a copy of those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Next thing is the elementary fence and landscaping. Greg, you want to tell us the update on that or the latest?
So I think you guys were provided with a sketch of taking in the information that we received from the abutter meetings and meetings with the abutters directly and feedback. And so a sketch was created of a proposed location along with plantings for that particular area. So we do have that. We now have a hard figure for what the plantings are going to be costing if you decide to go that route, and as well as what that placement looks like. We do want to try to get it in sooner than later because they're going to be loaming and seeding, and we don't want to try to do it after that, just so that we're not destroying everything that's going up. Plus, I think it's going to create a better block for our butters on the pond tree side there to keep whatever, trash, debris, dust, anything that comes on that site better at bay.
So in essence, the fence will be 10 or more feet kind of following the road?
The fence will be about 14 feet off of the 20-foot road width, or up that edge, running parallel to that, all the way down to a total length of 320 feet.
And the tree, the discussion and stuff we had in the last time made me kind of leave that evening with, there were at least 3 or 4 different solutions people wanted. People wanted trees on one side versus another side. It was getting too close here. Is the compromise or whatever, we have something that the abutters have signed off on? Or we still don't know?
We don't have something the abutters signed off of, but this is what was created. The sketch that was created was based on the feedback that we got from our last meeting, the abutters and yourselves, on what you guys were looking for and looking at.
Do you have extra copies of that?
I have my one original. Let's see what I got here. I don't have many copies at all. I passed around the one that I made. I just need it back for reference.
So that conforms though with what we discussed with the abutters at our last meeting?
It does. And the
I
thought,
thought we were 10 feet from the road and then...
we still got plantings that go on the school side of the fence. The arborvitaes are still shown on the school side of the fence, with additional plantings on the abutters side of the fence, or that land between there. So we do have about 12 different plantings that would go in down through that side area.
Do you folks have copies?
It was sent on June 9th.
Digital,
Do you want me
yeah.
to make
I
copies of
can
them?
run it.
I have a digital copy of them.
You probably can't. You won't be able to get a copy.
We can, Meredith, I think we can probably gather around, or folks can.
Yeah.
We don't, yeah, but thank
The
you.
attachment is June 9th.
Yeah. So Greg, on this drawing here, I see the arborvitaes on the school side, if you will, sort of beginning at 152 and then stopping almost, well, on this kind of midway on the fence. There are other plantings look like they're drawn along the stone wall. Are those existing? Is that
Those are the ones that were brought up, that there was plantings requesting on the side between our fence and the abutters property to be planted.
I
They
see.
didn't have to look at the fence.
Correct.
Yes, right. And so that's, those kind of, at least on this drawing, they're kind of running down the middle in between the fence and the stone wall?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's some that's, if you get down to where the fence gets closer to the actual stone wall, just because of the setback, we have additional plantings along there to create another kind of buffer area.
Has everybody got it?
Can't see
I'm
the
just not
drawing.
sure what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure which is the fence and which is the, I can see it, but.
This is the
From
fence.
20 feet off of the property line at
This
the
is the
road
property
edge.
line.
Okay,
This is the
Widens to
road.
30 feet where
Yeah.
it cuts in. Is 15
These are
feet
properties.
off the property line, about halfway back, and narrows to.
You can
6
see
feet.
how it kind of follows the contour of the road. It stays equidistant from the road. We had to have it off that distance for plowing.
okay.
We can't
No, I-
plow snow on this
I
side.
get it.
Yep,
Yep, thank you.
yep.
So the closest point of the fence to the stone wall is 6 feet?
Correct.
And when we get down there, the plantings are only on this side?
Yeah, because there's just no room to put
Right.
the planting there.
Other than the arborvitae, Greg, what's the other plantings you have on?
Well, I had originally spec'd what they call fringe trees and star magnolias. When we went out to get the pricing to get that done by our vendor, we found that we're having a supply problem with those, and they'd have to come out of state. So there was an actual alternate that was suggested by our vendor, which are in the same size and flowering type. And what we didn't want to get into trees that got 40, 50 feet tall and giant trunks, but something that could look good and is easy to
I
maintain.
see.
So it's kind of how we went with like a magnolias and those fringe trees, because they don't grow the big, but they do create a nice view and flowering and buffers and that kind of stuff.
And some of this is, just so the public knows as well, we may have heard it before, but on the, let's call it the Pond Street side of the fence, other than those trees you just mentioned, it's just going to be hydro-seeded?
It's just going to be lawn and hydro-seeded, yes.
What's the maintenance is just to cut that every so often?
We have to mow it, and then we'll
Yeah.
prune the trees and,
Right.
keep up with the tree pruning.
Okay.
And are they responsible for the plantings on their side?
Nope, it's all us. It's our property.
So we have egress to their property to maintain it?
No, we'll go around the fence.
This is the property line, and this is the fence. So this is still.
We'll have about 20 feet to enter at the street side or 152 side, and as it does, I said, it tapers down to about 6 feet, so we'll be, probably push mowers and trimmers to keep up with it.
To clarify further to Russ's comment, the owners do have responsibility for anything on their side of the property line. I understood you to mean on the,
Well, I thought the plantings on the, so the plantings on the other side of the fence are still on our property?
Yes.
line?
Correct.
Given about
Okay, I was just worried about whether we had to get on their property and get easements and all that kind of, okay.
nope.
Okay.
We originally had projected, I think, about 4,500. That price went up to 6,500 when we got with our vendor. So right now, they're for the 12 trees, we're at $6,500 for all of those plantings. A lot of the grade below that is gravelled, so obviously we have to put in a base that will support the trees too, so.
That's additional to the arborvitae.
That is additional. So the original, as I called it Phase 1 landscaping, which included the arborvitaes and included a rain garden that we have to do in this phase of the work, was $9,900. This would be another $6,500 on top of that, or what, about $16,000.
So we had already budgeted for the other stuff, the other,
The $9,900 was
Yeah.
already in,
right.
with the arborvitaes being there in the rain garden.
How many plants was 6,500?
It's 12 trees, 3 to 4 caliper trees.
3 to 4 inch.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Plus,
assuming.
plus
that-
we had to we need to put some better soil in there for them to be able to thrive, which is, I asked them to be included too.
As long as this is what we talked about with the abutters, I'm fine with it. That's what we've always talked about.
Where did the sizing come from, the 3 to 4 inch caliper?
That was, I picked the size based on the height of the tree to try to create some of that view block, because we are putting an 8-foot stockade fence in. So that gives us about between a 9 and 11-foot tree approximately.
Where did that 8-footer ever come from? I mean, I know,
The neighbors requested,
yeah, I know they requested it, now they request that we screen it.
I don't disagree, I mean, we had multiple meetings, there were.
I know, was there, I listened to them, and I said, I can't believe this.
But in fairness to
They
that.
want a spike fence. They want a spike fence, they got a spike fence, and then now they want us to screen it. It makes about as much sense as nothing. So, I'm all done.
Are there cheaper versions of, I guess, to Skip's point?
Sure.
I mean, a 3 or 4 inch caliber tree.
I mean, the other thing,
Pretty substantial.
yeah.
I mean, we can certainly drop to a much smaller tree, you know, more to a 1 or 2, which would be a lesser tree and obviously lesser money.
It grows over time.
It grows over time.
And I think we're being pretty reasonable here. I mean, the fence is not an eyesore as it is without any block, right? It's a cedar fence.
And it's a dog-eared, so instead of regular pickets, we went that route just so there wasn't any kind of sharp points, and sometimes the smaller pickets break off and things like that, so a little more substantial wood there.
So we're into the sort of something, this issue's sort of been with the building committee in several meetings, but the amounts we're talking about, I think, are sort of down at the, I guess, change order level or the level that you guys can probably deal with. I think within this range, it's within your discretion, but I kind of agree with Skip. I don't see the need to go with a expensive 3-inch diameter tree there right away, something that was,
I could certainly work with our landscaping contractor that we already have under contract to do some of the other work. He has the phase 1 work as well as the cemetery, so I can work with them to kind of bring this down.
I mean, I know I'm splitting hairs, but I mean, a 3 to 4 inch caliber tree is a real luxury in terms of a new plant going in the ground. And I agree with you, Greg, that it's in keeping with the size of this 8-foot fence, or whatever you want to call it. And so I certainly think that maybe a 2 to 3 inch caliber is plenty. I have a little concern with going down to a 1 to 2 inch caliber because their mortality rate is probably a little larger than than a 2 to 3 inch. I think a 2 to 3 inch is a substantial plant and could, has a good chance of.
I think we'd be probably, if I was just quick off the top of my head, you're probably talking, and please don't hold me to this figure, but I'm thinking you're talking like $1,000 to $1,500 reduction in price by doing that.
I just suggest that we look at the other cost items before we make.
Yeah, just one question. I assume there's some standard warranty for the first year or something like that, that if
Yes.
they die, they're
Yep.
replaced. This is just living too long and having to find these things out over time. Yeah.
yes, but usually with a warranty, you gotta do
We have to do watering.
You gotta do some sort of maintenance, like.
That is our requirement to make sure they're watered.
Okay.
We'll probably get to it later on, and I know the residents were told we were going to do something, so that's not a question. But my question is, does this tree fence combination open up doors to other parts of the lot where they would say, well, you did it on the side?
I can't answer for that. What I can say is, there's always that potential. You gave it to them, I want it too.
It's already happened.
So,
already happened.
but we've already
That's
heard
already
that, but, you guys, they came up on the fences for around 2 other properties, and you had, in that last minutes, it talks about that you had decided no.
And sort of my response to all that came up was that we've already had a process. It was an open process. We gave people notice to come to meetings, and we agreed to do these things. And this isn't a running thing. So as far as I'm concerned, that's closed. Unless a situation arises where it makes sense. And that
And
I'd certainly agree with
to
that.
kind of further that, my take on it is that Pond Street has always been an issue with the abutters, and I wasn't at the meetings when the fence was agreed to, when the plantings were agreed to, whatever. That was a long time ago. It is what it is. I don't know about the rest of you. I got better things to do than to talk about $5,000 worth of landscaping. I think the town does. I think that's what Meredith and Greg are here for, is to make those decisions. I really,
We have to
some of
have
the bigger
your,
issues we need to deal with.
we
I
do
don't
have
think
to
we
have
need
your
talk
approval
about it.
because it's outside the scope of the project.
Well, you don't need our approval. We're an advisory committee, the facilities committee. We're advisory. And if there's a change order for a
Building.
certain amount, building committee.
Change
I mean, I understand what you're saying, Greg. I disagree with that. I don't want to get into the details of
That's
every
fine.
little potential change order. And it's not you, it's not Meredith, it's the way it's been going. I think we in the school board need to consider how much micromanaging do we want to do on this? I don't want to do a whole lot, to be honest with you. But
I do want to touch upon a couple things so you guys are aware of it. So, right now with the base landscaping, the butters fence and the cemetery, you're at $38,500. We budgeted $30,000 originally in owner's cost, so you're $8,580 plus to that. That doesn't include the $6,500 in plantings on top of that. So I do want to make you aware of that. And then there's the next issue also plays into that too.
So 14 and a half
Over the 30.
But we knew from day
We're
one
over in multiple
that the
areas.
landscaping was gonna basically cost us $100,000.
We
We
could round up to
had $30,000
Yep.
budgeted.
I just bring it up so that you're aware of it.
Yeah,
Yep.
oh, yeah, no, I agree.
If and I'd be remiss in not letting you know as we get into some of the other issues, we do have to talk about the trees too, so, and what you do on that,
Agreed.
so.
It's the Pond Street stuff, I agree.
It's actually more than just Pond Street, it's also, the parking lot behind the elementary
Yep.
school, or in front of the elementary school, excuse me.
Yeah, in front.
So we agreed to move on to C then, so we can, okay, so you have all the cost information because the total is over the $10,000
Yep.
threshold that we're
Yep.
So the tree removal.
The tree, we spent some more time with the trees, and we've had more requests from the Pond Street abutters about clearing out all of the overgrowth down the stone wall area. So we came up with a cost projection of about $2,200 to take down the 2 trees and clean the scrub that's along that stone wall out. And then we met with we had elementary parking lot area. There's 4 trees there. 2 are on our property, 2 are not on our property. And that was about $3,400. And I put down a note here that does not include any legal fees because we are looking at discussing 2 trees that are not currently on our property. So we would need some kind of legal release to be able to deal with those.
What was the number, Greg, for the parking lot trees?
$3,400.
Okay.
And in the email that was sent out on June 19th, that was 2 trees only within the original scope that you were looking at, which was $985. And so those 2 additional trees add.
Is this process, regardless of our final decision here, is this process have an end to it? And that the abutters know that as well, and that this is not something that it's fair game to bring up every 3 months? Yeah, that's why I brought up sign up.
There is no such thing as an end game, Tim.
Well,
No such thing. And a butter can show up at any meeting at any time and want something. It's a matter of whether we have the intestinal fortitude to say no.
It's
That's what it comes
it's a
down
fair
to.
point, and I'm concerned, like I said, we've gone through a process, and I'm worried at this point as a slippery slope. If we start doing things, getting into that exact thing, trees are gonna keep growing, as is vegetation. And the way I kind of break it down is it a potential safety issue for our property? And/or is it a potential substantially more expensive maintenance issue down the line if we don't do it now? For instance, if we put up, say, a fence or wherever, and we've got a tree on the other side of it, do we have to remove the fence to take the tree? All those types of things. I'm not sure that the trees over on the parking lot side and perhaps, I don't know, of the Pond Street site necessarily meet that. I don't know what other people feel like. Maybe the Pond Street trees are unique insofar as we're putting up a fence. If we ever had to take them down, it's kind of in a tight spot.
I'd just like to be at a point, and I recognize your point about you can always get sued and you can always get reopened. We have a story. We've reached out as much as we could. We've had a bunch of meetings. Things have changed. We're finally at the end of the process. I recognize we'll never get sign-off from all the abutters on an approved plan, but we should make a statement. We've gone through this. We're here where we are as far as we're concerned. this is now done, when we get to the done part of it. I recognize that may leave the door open, but I'd like to take credit for both a good process and the fact that this has to end at some point. It's not something that,
We certainly have the ability to say we're done. So, you know, it's a matter of.
It seems a little illogical to me to ask us to take down trees within a spit's distance of trees we would just plant to accomplish site relief, view relief, I should say, of the fence. I mean, it didn't, I am not an arborist, but it didn't appear that those trees were ready to fall over.
The
ones on
trees
Pond
on Pond Street, there's one that could, one of the two trees that we're talking in question, could use some professional pruning and cleanup. There's a lot of suckers growing around it that could be cleaned up, and the tree actually is relatively healthy. The other tree has some age on it. Again, some maintenance to it would probably make it a healthier tree than it currently is, due to just some of the added overgrowth and things that have grown up around it.
These are on the Butters property.
These ones are not on the abutters property.
You're talking about this one.
Yeah, these are two on our property. The other trees that are in question by the elementary school side of the parking lot, two of the trees are not physically on our property. The trunks are, but they are not. But the tree hangs over our property line. One of those trees is not salvageable over a long period of time. It's cracked, it's broken, it's in rough shape. One of the trees that is on our property has a crack and has another tree that's rubbing up against it. The other two trees are not in that same situation, but they do all lean over towards our property. Either two that are on our property and the two that are off our property all lean towards the parking lot area.
Let me ask you this, if this was your money, what would you do?
I don't want to answer that question.
We have a responsibility to
understood.
maintain our property. We
Right.
don't necessarily have a responsibility to maintain that of our neighbors. And yet, I think
agree.
this committee gave some indications at our last meeting that we would be willing to consider that. So
I agree.
That's the challenge.
I don't mean to sound flippant on that. It just, I don't feel comfortable
What
in
about the
that
trees that aren't
situation.
healthy? You said one of the trees was cracked, but it was on a butter's property.
Correct.
So if that falls, it's gonna fall on
Our property.
somebody's car, somebody
Yep.
walking to school?
Yep.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
But we don't have the right to technically cut it down because it's not ours. We only have the
Understood.
right to cut down what's hanging over our property
Understood,
line.
but the abutters asked us to cut it down.
right,
They have.
which we should probably get in writing if we haven't.
We,
Just-
Mike and I took a walk out there at our last building meeting, and the trees that are on an abutter's property that are unhealthy, where they would fall on our parking lot. And they would potentially cause damage. The point is, though, it's the abutter's responsibility, not ours, if that would have occurred, as I understand it.
Absolutely.
So I, as a citizen, don't think it makes sense for us to assume the liability of somebody else. So those, to me, are pretty, as much as I hate to say it, those are pretty straightforward. The only reason I feel on the other side, on the swimming pool side, on the pond side, is I kind of feel like we shouldn't do it either.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what
I
you
don't
said.
think we should do it either. That's kind of why, if it's, you asked the question, if it's my money, why are we spending the town's money to, and I hate what I'm gonna say, but to keep leaves out of somebody's pool or removing them, their liability. I don't like to say what I just said, but that's what I feel.
I don't think we should be cutting trees on other people's property, period. That's what,
Yeah,
that's
no,
where I
I
stand.
don't disagree with that, I'm just asking the question, and what is what are we setting as a baseline? I think the trees, I went out and looked at the trees on Pond Street, and, I mean, they're not very big. They look like they're in pretty good health.
They just need some pruning.
Yeah.
I do want to let you know that We do have remaining landscaping to do at the elementary school, and I projected that at about $18,900. And I think I'd be remiss in not informing you of some of this information. The total impact, if you decide to have all these done, or what we already have booked and what potentially additional, brings that up to $69,500, which would put you $39,500 into that line, that particular line item negative.
Back to your point, Eric, we
We're
would like
not-
to go over budget, but we don't necessarily want to add to that.
But when does the landscape, I wouldn't think that landscaping at the elementary school needed to be done anytime in the near future.
The rain garden
The rain garden.
has to be
it
done, but the front stuff would be next summer. So we haven't put that out to bid yet. There's quite a bit of plantings that have to be done out there. I won't probably write an RFP for that until February, March range of
Well, my point is,
2019.
we can wait, or,
Correct.
I'd like to be out of the process, but whoever can wait to make that decision and see where we are with the contingency, whether you want to spend the money. I mean, look, what we're talking about landscaping is chicken feed compared to what we may have occur for change orders with, we get in the building and start ripping stuff apart.
I can give you some ideas on some things that we know about
$50,000 on
too.
landscaping now, and run out of money because we spent $50,000 on landscaping when we need it for something we hit at the high school, from ad reno. So whatever we can defer, I would suggest we defer.
I do want to talk to you about some potential contingency impacts.
The last butter request first. Deal with those
Yes.
3 items.
Yep.
Oh, I thought we had that one already. No.
We had additional butter call us about their pool, and they're concerned that they're getting a lot of dust in their pool and/or whatever from the site, and that they're concerned that their pump is or will be damaged, and he'd be looking at us to replace it. So we did reach out to get some cost analysis to have that pool cleaned on a weekly basis for the summertime, and it runs between $70 and $100 weekly to have someone come in and just clean the pool, not do chemicals.
Is this Pond Street?
This is Pond Street, yes.
Well, first of all, if there's dust going into the pool, that's unacceptable. We're supposed to have a clean site. That's, in any construction site. There are issues, but if we're acknowledging now we're gonna send dust and dirt and whatever into the pool for the whole summer, that's unacceptable.
I have not sampled what was there, and have not seen that, whether it's dust or pollen or the normal type things that go on around.
Right.
But this was brought to us, and he feels that he's cleaning his filters a lot more than he ever has in the past, and that he's very concerned about damaging his pump.
So you're on site. Is there an issue with stuff blowing in the neighbors' yards? If there's blowing in their pool, it's blowing in every other neighbor's yard too.
From what I can see, the contractor's done a very good job of trying to keep the dust at bay. They have a water truck out there. Of course, we've had some rain too recently, that's helped, but they have had a water truck out there. A lot of the big services of excavating in that area have been completed. A lot of the area has been loamed out. We still have that area where the fence would have to go and that kind of stuff, but a lot of that is diminished considerably.
Out of fairness, though, we told them we were gonna put up a fence, which we didn't do, a dust fence. Isn't that right?
We never committed to a dust fence. We committed originally to the 8-foot stockade fence. Then after that got put on hold because of the location, we said we would put up a 6-foot fence with a scrim on it. The abutter did say he does not feel that that would be sufficient. And we were still talking about trying to get this fence put in permanently, so that 1 week span there was what we bought, because the other fence at the other side just went in yesterday for the abutter there.
But at the last meeting, you did say we're gonna put up that fence.
Yeah,
And we
I did.
Now,
Yep.
what effect that has or not, I don't know, because there was a huge pile of loam there, which is now gone, right? For the
Yes.
most part. I mean, so, I look at the site and I say, all right, maybe in the last month, the site was in such a state that stuff blew onto people's property and whatnot. But going forward, all summer long, there's no reason for there to be anything leaving the site all summer long. I assume that it's gonna be seeded in the near future, hydro-seeded.
That's why we
Still
wanted
gotta
to
do
get the
road and
fence in,
everything, but-
because we don't want to disturb the loam and the
Right.
hydroseeding area where the fence is
Right.
running.
I've seen oftentimes where, you know, in construction, you go and well, all right, we've got to wash their house down, we got to wash their car or something because you had an event. But consider doing something all summer long. That's acknowledging that we're not even following our permits.
That was the request of the abutter.
It would suggest that it's a continuing condition, which I gather it won't be, or.
Which is contrary to our permits.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think the concern was those, since our last meeting, the 3 intervening weeks, we had a couple of high wind days, we've had,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
some conditions, and we did have a fair amount of dirt on the site despite best efforts to take appropriate measures to contain that. Can I verify that dirt blew in his yard? No. Do I have a reason to doubt it? No.
Oh, and I agree
Ongoing
with that
issue.
too. I agree with that too. But typically, in a construction setting, if that's in my business, the contractor has to pay for that. If it's on him, they have to pay for that. That's not the owner's responsibility. We have permits that are supposed to be adhered to. You know, and that's.
I don't disagree.
You know, I mean, so, and I understand this is all a political issue, but what bothers me is, stuff happens. I know it happens and you have stuff you need to do. But, you know, when a butter says, I want you to clean my pool every week for the summer, that's like us saying, okay, we know we're gonna contaminate it every week for the summer, and that's just not, I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna
It's not
happen.
gonna happen.
In fairness, I think the abutter was looking to make sure that the problem was going to be addressed and resolved, and that
Yeah.
was putting us on notice that if there were an ongoing issue, that they'd be looking for some compensation for damage to their pumps or whatnot.
And-
I wouldn't say the abutter asked for weekly cleaning service.
And that's fair and reasonable, but I would also say that if their pump died tomorrow because of stuff that's in the pool from our site, that's on the contractor, not on us. I mean, that's what we have people inspecting for, to make sure that we're not having those types of issues. But-
And I will say, the site super did go down several times. We've been on the site obviously every day, and they have been bringing in water trucks on a regular basis to keep the dust down as standard practice would be. So that has been taking place. We did deal
And
with.
that's fine as long as you don't have piles of stuff. Watering doesn't
Right.
help a pile of.
No, we did have a very large sand pile there at one point because we had to remove all the sand, put in the new drainage system at the back of the property.
Sure.
But that work has been 100% completed.
So is this now an issue that's essentially been abated, and we just have to monitor to see if there's any damage?
Residual type of thing,
Residual
yeah,
damage
yeah.
to the pump, or, you know, the owner, I'm sure, will let us know.
Yeah.
But
I bring it forward because it was brought forward to us.
No, thank you, Greg.
Oh, I think-
How old's the pump?
I have no idea.
We ought to ask that question. Somehow we should know that.
Have you gone and looked at the pool? Have you?
I looked at the pool, but when I've looked at it, he said he's cleaned it, and it looks good. Can I say there was dust around? Yeah, but I don't know if it was pollen, because we've had a real heavy pollen year, or if it was construction dust.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell by, touching it well or not, what it is. So it could be either or a combination of both.
In listening to everything, if I'm trying to follow all the bouncing balls, if in fact the abutter did not say, I would expect you to clean my pool every week going forward, okay, that came up as a possible solution on a continuing care basis. I'm again to the end of the process issue. If the piles are gone, if the pool's cleaned, I don't want to sign up for something that says, we'll go forever and ever, or the next 4 months, because then we'll be back there again and again, every trigger. If they're not asking, then let's end the process, okay? If the piles aren't there, thank you for letting us know. We're glad we lived through it together, and there should not be an issue. Raise it, if all of a sudden it comes back. But if we're not expecting it, and As Eric said, it's the contractor's
I bring it
issue.
forward because of the information that we
Yes.
do, and we needed to bring that information forward. Whether or not we do it is really in your decision area.
My 2 cents worth is that we run into this all the time where neighbors will tell us that dust is coming in their windows or that the siding is full of dust. And our response is to do everything we can to minimize that. I don't think we did in this case. I think the fence made it fine. But I feel that common sense tells you if somebody's property has been dirtied or affected in some way, that it's the contractor's responsibility to fix it. Whether it's spray paint that goes over the hill onto a car or whatever it is. So that's my, whether or not any damage was done, I can't tell, and I guess that's up to you. But if there was damage done, I think we should certainly.
What do our permits say?
Our AOT permits? Our permits basically say that we have to do proper construction protocol for containing. And like I said, they've been watering it, but you have a 30-foot high
But the-
pile of sand. You
the
know as
proper
well as I do
protocol
on a
is
windy
covered.
day, it's going to move.
But the proper protocol for that is covering.
That would be an option, yes.
If
Yep.
it's gonna be there for any amount of time. You don't do
Yeah.
it every day or whatever.
Those piles have probably
Does the
been,
AOT
Or mulch it.
Does the AOT permit get that specific?
no. It's more of just what we're doing to the site or how much impacted area to the site, not into the details. Just says you must follow, protocols, that type of thing. I'm paraphrasing it, but yeah.
Can I suggest this, maybe we can move on, is in terms of the pool, I think it's Brendan, I forget Brendan's last name, but that you just communicate with him, that we, just have him keep in touch with us as to how it goes. If it doesn't become an issue with the pump, then, I think nothing becomes of it, okay? Because we've moved those piles and it's no longer blowing. So, I think that's the
Well,
way to go.
I agree with you. Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
One further step of that, I think, is that everybody needs to understand that if they have a problem, if he thinks his pump died because of something blew into his pool, we should be giving him the contractor's insurance information, let the contractor's insurance company deal with it. That's how it typically is dealt with.
Right.
We're supposed to be the intermediaries to make sure that doesn't happen.
Correct.
But short of that, it's a contractor's
Right.
insurance company.
I think that's a fair point. I think Skip's question is a good question, which is, we should just ask what the age of the pump is. If it's a 15-year-old pump versus a 1-year-old pump, I'd at least like to know we asked the question and we got an answer, even if it's the contractor's issue, if we're in the middle of it. But if.
Well, I think that question may come, but the pump hasn't failed, as far as I understand.
The pump has not
He's not
failed.
looking to replace his pump. It may be moot. We may be fine going forward, but I suppose if it came to it, and that, again, would be an issue for the insurer, to verify causation, at that point. So I don't think we open up that question now, because it's not relevant yet.
Okay. If this is a test case for, I'm not saying we brought it up for that, but if this is a test case to the issues that we're going to be bringing up, and if one of the solutions that we have in our toolbox is to say this is a contractor issue, our job is to make sure there's a dialogue between this and people are not insulted in the process, but it's not our job to pay off the claim. Here's the process that's in place. I'd like to figure that out, because I appreciate that we can get into every little detail and nuance, and this may change. I think it'll bog down everything. I'd at least like to be able to say, if we rule off and say these are contractor issues, let's make sure they're raised and then move them to
These
this,
issues
but not spend
just
the time
to-
trying to solve it.
Let you know, I met with with our contractors on the site, including our excavating contractor as well as our site foremans on the site, and reviewed that and making sure that they take all proper steps to ensure that containment stays on our site. I will also tell you that pile disappeared pretty rapidly, so it wasn't there for 3-4 weeks. It was there for a short
You
period.
need 2 days of wind and then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you.
Yeah, and we've had some interesting wind.
Yeah, I mean, and the way these things go is the abutters complain to the insurance company says no. Then the people come back to us and say, why'd you let them do it? That's my point, is that we shouldn't be letting this happen. We gotta make sure this doesn't happen. It doesn't need to happen. It's a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It doesn't need to happen. We have a permit that we should be making them abide by.
And one last thought, I thought the issue, this isn't the issue, but I thought it was. I thought the issue was that they wanted to be reimbursed for cleaning the pool.
No, they wanted to, I think best way to put it, Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong, wanted to put us on notice that.
Oh, okay.
That they had these issues, they
Gotcha.
weren't keeping up with the cleaning of the pool, and that I think it was thousands of dollars worth of pump damage could happen, and be looking
Perfect.
for somebody to take care of that. And so we brought this up as a way to say, if you want the information, this is what it would take.
And I would suggest that you take that information and also give it to the contractor and say you may get a claim filed at some point against this. Let them go look at it also, so they're aware of it.
Not a problem.
That's my suggestion, do what you want, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I told you so close.
No, but I've done a lot of this, and that's what happens.
No, believe me, I understand.
All right.
So Mike, can I say?
Yes.
So just the general process is that I know Pond Street is unique, and I know the tree cutting is unique, but I hope that this is, I'm trying to be politically correct, the last time we have to get into this kind of minutia. You know, I mean, we have a process in place now for reporting, we have a process in place for change orders and this and that, and every time, I understand the politics behind this, and I understand that we should be involved in this, but after this, I don't think we need to get into this level of detail on all these other items that are gonna occur.
Us, meaning the building
The-
committee. Yeah.
the building committee.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, this is sort of a unique situation,
Yeah.
and I don't even anticipate, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't foresee more of this.
This should be the end of
The
it.
butters can bring more things up. And we'll be kept informed of that, but I'm not sure as it ultimately requires building committee review unless it hits those financial
Right.
marks we've already
I
established. So.
agree completely, and this is strictly, to me, this is strictly political. It's what commitments did we make prior to starting that we need to follow through on.
It's been an interesting issue.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure has. So what are we gonna do is the ultimate question. And that's what we're here for,
And that's
right?
just
What
what
are we gonna do?
that, and I can give you some construction updates on a few things.
First.
Yep.
I guess again, my parameters in terms of tree removal are safety. If it's on our property and it's a safety issue, whether it's a tree falling on our property or somebody else's property, then I think we need to address it. I mean, that's not just in regard to this building project, but in general. So that's how I kind of view this thing. I guess I agree too with Skip that if a tree's on somebody else's property and, you know, they're telling us it's not in good shape, well, that's their responsibility to take it down. I think we really get into a slippery slope, not just on tree issues, but other issues if we start committing, and these aren't inexpensive issues, because then you can get into stump removal and all that, and it adds up. And I guess I'm not in favor of cutting trees on other folks' property.
I guess the only thing I would add, I totally agree, the only thing I'd add to that is if it is on our property and the tree is a potential danger, we need somebody to tell us that. Because we've looked at the trees and we think they're okay. Does it make sense to get a professional opinion? I don't know what the answer is.
And Al, to what point? If they're on somebody's property, we agree we're not gonna cut them. Who cares what kind of shape they're in?
No, if it's on our property.
Oh, on our property, I agree.
Yeah, those I agree with, those are,
Okay.
but if it's on our property and it's gonna provide a safety issue, you and I both agree, I don't think the ones on Street look ill.
I agree.
But they're gonna fall, but the question is, do you want?
I thought somebody looked at them, I thought that
I
was the
don't-
whole point.
Oh,
Somebody
they
looked at
did?
them. Yeah.
who looked at-
I did.
So we didn't have an arborist look at them?
I have my arborist license in another state.
Say that again?
I have my arborist license in another state.
Oh.
Good enough for me. As long as it's not me.
I'm,
The pine trees.
on the grounds that I may incriminate myself, I will not answer that.
So you feel comfortable making it?
I can tell you that the 2 trees that are in question on the Pond Street need pruning and maintenance work, but they're not in danger of falling. Ones we own,
Then my position is we gotta do it. Do whatever pruning we need to do to make them safe.
the other trees, the big one that's really in question that's, I would consider unsafe and unhealthy, is not on our property.
Well, just to be clear, to Eric's point, the trees you just talked about on Pond Street are not unsafe. They're just, it's an arborist issue.
Needs some attention.
They need
They
some
need attention.
attention.
Well, they probably have dead branches and
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
The biggest problem they have is sucker growth around the base
Oh,
of the
right.
tree, so it's causing, it then diminishes the ability for the
The
main
crown.
tree to get proper nutrients.
Yep.
Do we have to go on their property?
We would have to for one side of it. The tree kind of sits right on the wall edge. Both these trees sit pretty close to the wall.
Is that the 15-inch maple or something like that?
Yep.
Towards the pool?
No, it's kind of in the back of their house.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can I summarize what I think I've heard thus far?
Good luck.
Try.
Yes, no,
We
maybe.
are okay with the placement of the fence as depicted in the drawing. We are asking that the trees on the Pond Street side be reduced to 2 to 3 inch diameter trees. We are removing trees on our property that are a safety concern and otherwise just taking care to make proper maintenance and putting the abutter on notice to stay in touch with us if there are continuing concerns about the property, in which case we will put him in touch with the contractor to address those concerns, in addition to doing our own due diligence.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
That's Pond Street and
We're
then
not touching the trees on the
on
Right.
the
Parking.
abutter's property.
parking
Correct.
lot side.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go look at it a little more detailed. There's one that has a tree that's rubbing up against it, a smaller tree that may be helpful if we take that down, but it's a quick drop type.
You're the arborist. Tell us
Yeah.
tell us what the right thing to do.
I don't climb trees anymore. I don't do any of that really anymore. It's too fast coming down.
Plantings on the Pond Street side, we may want to look at the timing of that. It is, it'll be July, which is probably not optimal for planting trees, and maintaining them and watering them, so. if-
We don't currently have a water source over there, so we'll have to bring a truck in.
And again, if that's not an immediate concern, we can delay that, otherwise.
I think we need to delay it. I think,
Do what's best.
as far as I'm concerned, we've committed to doing it. As long as it gets done, we're good. We don't want to plant trees now. We want to wait till September or whatever to plant them, because, quite honestly, if we tell a landscaper to plant them now, the first thing he's going to say is, I'm not responsible for them because it's not the planting season, and so.
It's going to be 100 degrees.
As long as they know they're going in, I think we'll be fine. We're not going to wait 3 years to do it. We'll do it in the fall. What's the rest of, is everybody else?
I hate to avoid the
I can tell you their
warranty of the trees
statement
before
on
we
it,
plant
all,
them.
all plants installed by Make a Different Landscaping have a 1-year warranty. Neglect or lack of water will void the warranty. That's in bold print, by the way.
Yeah, so our responsibility
Yeah.
to water those through the summer months, I think, would be a challenge, because we'd be great paid to bring in a water truck to do it, because we
Yeah.
don't have.
No, I agree.
But we don't have to send someone down to talk to the trees every day so they can claim
Are you
neglect.
volunteering?
No,
Step
it's
for
just,
So as I,
Just wanna
as I
see how
I just
wide
want to make
that
sure I got it,
avenue
I think she got
was.
it. We're going to put the fence in, and we'll hold off on getting the plantings till a little bit more better time of the season so we can
Right.
utilize nature to
My only
water.
suggestion would be to reach out to the butters on Pond Street and let them know that's what's happening.
Hey, Greg.
Let them
Yep.
know.
Happy to.
We've got 3 minutes left.
This is the lightning round. We get
So
to that
you
board
wanted
now.
to do some construction updates?
I just want, yeah, I'll do it quick. I just want to let you know, construction's moving along very quickly. You could probably see a huge pace difference out there. A lot of things are happening on the building. Parts of the building are getting torn apart. I do want to give everybody the heads up, just so it's well known. We've talked about this before, and that's the sewer line in the elementary school, and our concerns about that. prior. That's still a concern. There's standing water in that pipe right now. We've had it cambered again. The other item is that we found that the high school sewer line on the opposite end of what we thought we were talking about, which is the side going out towards, yes, is in very bad shape. We're waiting for the final video and the information, but it is, may need to come out because it's in really bad shape.
How long the stretch? Just
It's,
out of curiosity.
it's probably what, 120,
All right,
150
okay.
feet run?
Okay.
Yeah. Inside the building. Yeah, so that means cutting open the
Sure.
floors.
Well, those cherry pumps.
The one that's at the elementary school is 6-7 feet down.
How much water is standing in the one in the elementary school?
From what I got, and I haven't seen the final video, but it's almost full.
Yeah, more than halfway.
How big a pipe, 4 inch or 6
That's a
inch?
4-inch. We have a 5-inch at the high school, that's a 4-inch.
So we know it's roughly 6 or 7. Does that raise shoring issues?
It does raise shoring issues in that.
It's down the corridor of elementary.
The same with the high school is down the quarter. That is a 5-inch line that is having more than just standing water. It's got other issues.
How does this, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I heard about this earlier this week, and the first thing that came to mind was, why didn't we know this during the phase when we were looking at engineering? Why didn't we scope it? Why didn't we camera it? So that we would have known that this was the case.
We actually tried chasing that a few different times, but within the elementary school, why would we be chasing buildings built in, say, mid-80s, something to that effect? Why are we chasing, looking for a sewer line that's underwater?
For the very same reason that it.
Could you, in that case, you might have to go through everything, the entire building?
No.
Al, you know, I understand, I appreciate the question. Typically, though, if there's a sewer line and the sewer line is working, you don't assume there's problems with it.
But we've had problems.
We've had,
Last winter, we heard for the first time how. we had
Right.
problems.
We knew in
But keep in
Jan-
mind, we had already gone through everything we were doing for bond last fall, not this winter when we finally heard that. We then scheduled, had some, we need to do a camera. And that, somehow that video blew up, but it didn't work. So we, when school got out this year, went back in, because you couldn't really do all this stuff easily. We were bonding anybody to do it while school was in. When school
Why
got
is
out,
that? Why is that?
they didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I had several contractors says, no, we don't want anything to do, we don't want to deal with the liability behind it.
So we had the contractor that was doing the mechanical work when school got out, do the scope.
So can I ask this, what effect, if at all, might it have on the schedule if it's decided we need to do some of this replacement?
The high school line has to be done, if it's going to be done, it has to be done now. We're actually started abating that hallway in anticipation that may have happen. We get into the same issue at the elementary school. That not for abatement, no, but for that line having to be replaced immediately because there's things that have to be brought off of that line into the new addition. So it does create some of those things that have to happen now. We don't know what the cost is, and we don't have the full impact on that yet. Again, this is just, it's fairly new information, so I'm working with our contractor to kind of come up with what we're going to be looking at, what the scope is. We've also brought in Allied Engineering, who did our engineering work on the project, to kind of take a look at the videos and the information to kind of clarify the direction.
Well, I mean, we got to do the right thing. That's the bottom
To your
line.
point, Eric, though, these are the pieces that's why we have the contingency.
Right.
We're doing at Reno, we're doing the very old building, the junior, senior high, is probably no surprise to any of us that there was an issue somewhere. The elementary school, we had talked about that issue at prior meetings, we weren't able to get the scoping done, despite some
Not
effort.
with the elementary school, it was not anticipated or even thought to be a problem until we heard about it. When high school, we all said some of that might be some problems, but until we could get some scopes and figure out, and now we're working on how we're going to address it.
No, we're just looking at this, just kind of sort of recently, we're still doing the analysis. Is there any chance that it impedes the start of school year down at the elementary.
I
Can't,
can say this, if the
I know
elementary
it-
gets to that point,
Yeah.
that line doesn't get changed till next summer.
Yeah.
We have
Right.
to figure a different way around what we're doing.
Right.
But that line, in order to get down 6 or 7 feet in that corridor, it's gonna make one heck of a mess. You've got summer school in there, there's a number of different things.
That's
that we
what I'm
have to all
talking about.
work
which gives us the month of August basically to do it.
Right, and then that's really, I guess, what I'm getting at, because if we have such a tight window, and if anything goes wrong during that process, and you're in a situation where it's coming up to Labor Day, and, you
I
know,
think the
so-
problem is,
so
we
it's-
right
it's-
now need to look at the big picture of what impacts that, the rest of the project does. By
Yeah.
not fixing that now, what does it do? And that's what we're trying to come up with
Okay.
right now. What does that do for going forward? Can we not put these foundations in on this side of the building because we can't get
Mhm.
to tie those lines in?
Not having school start isn't on the table. That's a
Right.
non-starter for
But
us.
is it a sag, or is it affected the whole way down? Like, if
Right.
it's a sag in the middle, and we know this end is staying fixed, we can still connect, because we know in between we can fix the problem.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is this a, you know, pipe, is it a 5-foot sag, an area with 5 feet of water in it? Is
I
it
haven't
20
seen all the
feet, you know?
final, and I don't know if John has
More
yet.
like 20 feet.
Yeah.
right? We're still trying to figure out, because you can get some depths, we may have to do more investigation, but.
Was the camera that was used able to do a slope on the pipe? Did they, so they know that the pipe, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So my question, the question really is that, if we know it's a short area, we may not have to take out the whole pipe if we know that the slope is appropriate
That's
everywhere.
Yeah, you might just be able to spot fix it.
Right.
Yep. The high school, we do know there's over 40 linear feet of bad line in one section. So we know certain that there's one section of 40 feet, which basically starts at the double doors of the building and go in towards, down the hallway. We're still trying to figure out the rest of it.
Can I ask this too, if, I mean, it comes off the spot, you know, fixing potentially, is that, it comes to mind, what caused it potentially? And is it something that may happen elsewhere down the length of this thing?
Probably faulty installation,
Yeah, you
faulty
can't
compaction
really
material
answer it.
beneath
It
that.
could have been there like that since day one.
Mhm.
We don't know that answer.
Right.
Some of the concern that can happen is if that pipe for the last 30 years has been full of water, how soft is that pipe now? Can we replace, or are we gonna keep chasing it because everything you touched is crumbled?
That's, yes.
We
Yeah.
don't know that.
And that goes to my original point of, there's a point in time where we're really getting at risk. We can't, you know what I'm saying, we can't go over it, and so,
And that's exactly why
Yeah.
I'm saying, I really don't wanna talk about $50,000 in landscaping, we may have a bunch of other more important.
And that's why I feel it's my responsibility to bring it up to you guys that I'm running into these things, so you be aware of them.
Did you ever hear of Ted Berry?
Yep.
Ted Berry out of
Yep,
Maine?
yep.
It might be worth contacting them.
I do want to touch two more things, because I know you run out of time here. We also have unsuitable materials at the elementary school, which we talked about earlier, and we also have some more at the high school, but not in the area we thought we were going to find them. It's
Greg,
on
can
the
you
opposite
define
side.
that for us? Maybe?
Unsuitables are materials that we can't build off of for making, so the materials have to be removed and proper materials have to be brought in.
It's not appropriate dirt.
It's not good
Not
dirt.
load-bearing capacity,
Yes.
no load-bearing capacity. So
Correct.
silts and clays is what you're saying?
Organics, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
The elementary school had a foot thick of organic.
Oh, okay.
Can we use that as mulch or fertilizer somewhere else?
If you want to spend the time separating it.
What area is that in?
Which one, the high school?
No,
Elementary?
Elementary is where the gymnasium is.
will be.
We haven't dug where the classrooms.
Will be, yes.
Trailers, so those, we started digging for the foundations of the gymnasium this week. And that's what we find, SW Cole has been out there.
So what's the order of magnitude, what are we talking?
I don't think it's as bad as I originally anticipated the depth. I think it's going to be, that had to be removed anyways. It just means we're going to probably have to bring in fill we didn't anticipate, and it's not, I'm not talking they're going to bring in 300 yards of fill for this thing.
So it's not at the level of the bottom of footings, it's material you're taking out above that, but
Correct.
you gotta replace it when you backfill.
Correct.
Yeah, in the footings we've done, when we get down to footing, it's clean.
So it's basically filling in what we have to take out because we can't reuse it.
Right.
The high school, we've only done a few test dig areas at this point for that, and so I can't answer on that yet. But we do know we found some stuff there already.
Obviously, the borings didn't, because of the spacing of the borings, we didn't locate all the,
That's right.
Correct.
So the back parking lot where the block, that foundation, that area, we know we have geopiers in one area, but this area in the back is not something we have checked.
Okay.
Look at the parking lot, it's not that bad a shape.
And I give you those because I think you need to know those information and keep you apprised
oh, I
of what we're
appreciate that,
running
and
into.
those could be significant issues, so
Yep.
I think that's.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Nothing else, we can adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
August meeting.